Welcome to the Business Unfiltered series. I'm Rick Plaskett, a certified business and leadership coach here in Ohio. And today my guest is Joseph Badger. He is the founder and the CEO of Upper Room Solutions, a company that works with technology and health insurance. And today we're going to talk to him about his business, some of his challenges, the best practices, and share a peek into what it's really like to build and operate a business. And in Joseph's case, how he is preparing for the next chapter and some of the work that he's doing in his planning to have a succession. If this is your first time on the channel, please be sure to like and subscribe so you get notifications of our future conversations. So Joseph, welcome and thank you for being here today.
I'm glad to be considered for this podcast.
Yeah, super. I think you've got an amazing story, and what you were just sharing with me before we went on air is wonderful, and I want to get to that. So if you would start off and give the audience just a little brief overview of your background, how you got here today, and tell us a little bit about Upper Room Solutions.
Well, as we say in the industry, nobody wakes up as a kid and says, "I want to be in insurance." We all have unique stories of how we ended up here. So, my original goal was to be a professor and consultant in economics. So, as a young man, I did my master's work and then was working on my doctorate in econ. But still, with 5 years left to go, I was hired away by GTE as a forecaster in Everett, Washington. And that started a whole change of direction in my life. From there, I grew into applied economics, was hired away by Altel here in Hudson, Ohio, to also work on the econ side, but also on the regulatory side. And then from there, they kind of dragged me into marketing, where I oversaw and did marketing for Altel and then eventually Ameritech, a division of Ameritech. And again, had never foreseen a lot of these things, was never trained in marketing, but had a lot of fun doing it. Left there and actually had a company that designed log and timber frame homes, custom homes. How did that happen? And from there, ended up teaching business seminars across the United States. And from there, ended up running HR for a company in Cleveland. And after that, I kind of quasi-retired with the goal of leading and creating a nonprofit, which I did back in 2017. And then in 2018, I had an opportunity for a temporary role with a company called Colonial Life, and that turned into Upper Room Solutions. So I'd like to say I had a very clear plan, and I think it was more a matter of holding on, working hard, keeping my head down, and enjoying the ride.
Awesome, awesome. So with Upper Room Solutions right now, for the audience, can you kind of set the stage of what's the ownership structure? Are you the sole owner or are other partners involved, or do you even have outside investors?
That's a great question. So in our model, technically we started as an agency and we are all 1099s, which is actually my favorite structure. And we were identified as the carrier, which is Colonial Life. And what we found was when we mentioned the name Colonial Life, it put us in a box. Colonial Life, by the way, is a phenomenal company, but people didn't understand what that meant. They would think that we're a life insurance company or that we're Colonial Penn or a whole variety of things. So we rebranded as Upper Room Solutions and are moving more towards a firm that provides more solutions and goes to market to differentiate ourselves from just being Colonial Life, although again, we work a lot with them. And our model currently is Colonial Life, Upper Room Solutions is an LLC, and we are building out a leadership structure. Currently, I'm sole owner of that entity, but we're building out a leadership structure where there could be shared ownership with those of us who are building it. And eventually, it can be offered to those who get to the C level, so they would have motivation and incentive for helping build this out as it can grow, whether it's across the state of Ohio or across regionals or even farther.
Super, super. So as the current sole owner partner in your company, give us an idea of a standard breakdown of how much of your time is spent in the nuts and bolts, and how much of it is looking to the future, your strategic planning and what building what the future will be?
That's a really good question. I would say it's 50-50. My focus, I believe, so one of the best descriptions I was ever taught of leadership is that if you look behind and people are following. Leadership is not a title; it's a way of being. You know, people just follow. So the other thing I'm a big advocate of is you're effective as a leader is if you no longer need to be there. Um, so really working hard to transfer skills, empower people, and enable others to do that down through the ranks. So I don't want to be the expert in everything anymore. And quite frankly, I'm not because other people are surpassing me, which was actually my goal. So as more of the responsibility shifts across and down into the organization, I probably spend about 50% of my time on actually sales and sales administration and leadership. But I'm starting to really spend a lot of my time thinking through how to build processes. I've always done that, build processes, be able to replicate excellence, and also think through strategically how do we structure this going forward so that this thing will have longevity. And once I'm gone, this thing will continue to grow and continue to flourish.
Super, super. That's an important part. I think you've hit a couple of key points of building a team. It's interesting when I work with other businesses and they get to the point where they are wanting an exit strategy, or they do specifically want to succeed to another generation of the family or to their employees. The first two things out of their mind is always when and how much. And those are on the other side of the equal sign. You know, those are completely out of your control. Mother Nature and Murphy can come in and wreck those best plans. And yet, how much control do you want when you pass the baton, and who are you passing the baton to? So it's really the people and your desired remains. I mean, do you want to stay focused in the company, or do you want to be an advisor, or do you want to just cut and go fly fishing for the rest of the year? And being able to focus on that right now and at least start to formulate what that vision is, I commend you, Joseph. That's fabulous. Tell me a little bit about your a little deeper on your leadership style. You touched on that, and I'd kind of like to know what it is today, and more importantly, do you think it's changed over the years?
So this may or may not make sense, but first of all, there's a book I read a while ago. I had asked somebody I really respected because there's a lot of great leadership books. What book would you recommend? And he threw out a title called Leading with a Limp by a guy named Dan Allender, who I've had the honor of studying under. And it's being honest, and not just people can throw around the word authenticity or transparency. It's acknowledging that I'm a flawed human being, and I lead flawed human beings, and that's not to just remove my accountability and responsibility for my role, but it's having a level of self-awareness and really understanding words like grace and mercy and kindness. Um, I also think that as a leader, and I have a nonprofit where I've walked alongside a lot of folks. Leaders who lead out of their wounding can create really brutal situations for those around them. And oftentimes they don't even know that they're wounded. And what I worked very hard on is levels of healing so that people around me don't have to experience leadership out of wounding. If you've ever, I don't want to lead out of having to be in charge. I don't want to lead out of narcissism. I don't want to lead out of a need of power. My genuine goal is to empower others to help them to flourish and to find in their own ways freedom, whether it's financial freedom or personal freedom. So my focus as a leader is yes, to be accountable, yes, to cast vision, Yes, to be responsible. Yes, to lead from the front. Yes, all those kind of things. But my leadership style is very collaborative. I don't need to be the smartest guy in the room. My goal is always what's the best idea. And ultimately, my goal is how do I transfer skills and grow others around me so that when the day I'm not here, that this place can be better than even when I was here.
Thank you for sharing that, Joseph. It's interesting. You mentioned a leadership book. There are many, many, many leadership books.
Yep.
And I was sharing with you, I graduated from West Point, and the guest speaker this last weekend at one of our dining events, he mentioned the focus of West Point and its leadership of character program. And he said his greatest observation is that all of the institution, the Amazon resources on leadership seem to all be very, very focused in a air-conditioned, climate-controlled office space, conference room environment. And he said, everything that you had mentioned about protecting from leading from pain, protecting from being the bad example of leadership. He said, West Point and in the military, leadership begins when you're cold, when you're tired, when you're in the mud, when you're in the sand, when you haven't had a good meal in the last 3 days, and everybody around you is in that same situation. And that's the type of thing that we trained and we learned and we lived in. And yet 98% of all people never get into that environment. And so it's the comfort of being inside, and that gives you uh, a false sense of security when it comes to those little things. I'm curious, Joseph, with your philosophy on leadership, um, how, I guess I don't want to say this the wrong way, but how self-knowing are you? Have you purposefully sought out and taken some of the personality assessment tools to be able to understand how you think and how culture and your upbringing molded you? And then how does that mold your team and your next generation of leaders?
I have actually. I've done DISC and relational strategies and INTJ and all those kind of things. I think those are very helpful to become self-aware, but also to become other-aware. Like when
Hmm.
I'm sitting down and
Yes.
talking to somebody and their style is different than mine, am I aware enough to pivot and to be able to relate to them at their style? So absolutely. And we actually teach that as part of our sales training, but everything you teach in sales is basically just life skills. So
Hmm.
um, we're teaching not just whether they know it or not, and they do know it, that we're teaching them these skills, but we're also teaching them skills they can use in relationships as a dad, as a wife, as a husband, as a father, as a friend. So it's really kind of fun where when you take those things, it has broader implications than just whether or not you can close a sale. So
It took me way, way too long in sales and basically in life, like you said, life skills, to come to the realization that I'm talking to you as if you are absolutely thinking and looking at the entire world the way I do. And yet my upbringing, my background are completely different than yours. The greatest coaching that I ever received in what I do was from my coach, and it was over a decade ago. And she told me, take your shoes off, stand up, move one step to the left, and now envision that I'm in your shoes.
hmm,
And what are you receiving? What do you need? And then give you what you need in the way in which you can receive it. And that at the first time I was like, yeah, this is silly. I'll tell you what, it is a physical reminder of where the importance is. And, when you want someone else to achieve a result, you kind of, if the result's the important thing, you got to give it to them the way they want to receive it, not the way you want to give it.
Yes. So we have a couple sayings. One of them is it's always the how. I'm a very simple guy. I've done really complicated stuff, but it's got to be simple for me or else I forget it. So you can be right and you can be wrong at the same time. So it's always the how. And what's been really fun to watch people grow and develop is they might have something happens, and they have the right answer, and they want to fix it. Maybe it's somebody made a mistake or whatever it might be. But then I'll ask the question: is your goal to win this battle, or is your goal to strengthen this relationship? So after you're coaching with that person, your ties with that person is stronger, their trust in you is stronger, their faith in you is stronger, and they're willing to receive your coaching and get better. And it's always the how. And we have a saying. I'd like to attribute these to others. I can't remember who they came from, but you can be nice, and being nice is doing so other things so other people like you, which is cowardly, or you can be kind, which is doing the right thing for the other person, regardless of whether they want it or not, but doing it kindly. And kindness takes courage. And when you take someone from being nice to becoming self-aware to being kind, as whether it's a leader or a salesperson or a servant or an account manager or whatever that is, things shift at fundamental levels.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's roll with that a little bit. Before we started on the air here, you were sharing a story that just happened to you last night. In the contents of developing your future leaders to take over your company, tell us a little bit about that story and how that came to be and how that fits into your vision of the next generation of the upper room solutions.
Well, so I have this strange things for swords. Um, we actually have an array of swords here at our office, and all of them have a story. Um, I don't have time to go into all of them, but they mean a lot to me, and they're also part of the nonprofit that I run. And there's something about holding a sword that just when you hold it, it's just interesting. Um, so I'm in a place in my life. I'm in my 60s. I'm looking at where the future is, and I'm really excited about the young leaders and the people that are growing here. But in transition, after having been the guy, you really want to transition these things. But at the same token, you're thinking like, what's next? Now, I don't foresee leaving this for 5 or 10 or maybe even 15 years. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here. But at the same token, you're investing in others, you're planning for the future, which are all good and right things, but also in your head, you're like, these are transitional things emotionally. And you're like, and again, my faith is foundational. So I was like, Lord, what's next? And how is this all going to work? So last night, the person who was being groomed to take this over he and his wife asked to meet my wife and I last night at the office, and he was very excited about it. And he also asked us out for dinner. We'd not done that before, and we showed up, and he hands me a box, and in the box is a custom-made forged sword from Nepal, and on the sword is the Bible verse that is my life verse, and the pommel of the sword is a lion, which is foundational to many things about me. And it took him 7 months to have this. He designed it, had it forged, and had it shipped. And the four of us sat here in the office, and I was honored to receive that. And I couldn't think of a better person to take this over. And to have that kind of relationship is unique. And then the cool part was we went out to dinner, and I got to hold their 8-month-old daughter, Tallulah, for the most of the meal. And we got to sit there and enjoy a wonderful meal together, but just to celebrate time together and the trust that we've built over years of working together.
Thank you for sharing that, Joseph. That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Hey, listen, We have certainly covered a lot of ground today, and I really appreciate the focus that you have on the future of your company and the care that you're doing in grooming that next generation to take over. For those of you that are watching, I highly encourage you to save this and come back and watch it a couple more times. I know I've taken a whole lot of notes, and I know that Joseph has given us some great nuggets here. As we wrap up, I'd like to hit a section that I call the rapid fire questions. Just
Sure.
what's top of your mind. You ready, Joseph?
Sure.
Hey, what is your key to success?
Owning owning what's my accountability and responsibility, and doing it in such a way where it furthers our culture as opposed to erodes or destroys our culture.
Fabulous. If there was a piece of advice that you could give to a business owner and they would receive it, be able to receive it, what would that piece of advice be?
Get healed. Um, and Probably some of the best lessons I've ever learned was to be in times of struggle and humiliation, as you talked about West Point. And sometimes we don't change when things are easy. And sometimes when things happen to us, we think they're the worst parts, but they're actually sometimes the best parts. And I think they've shaped me more than anything. So the opportunity to really be able to lead without having to put my junk on other people.
Super. Thank you so much. If there was one area of your business, Joseph, that you could wake up on Monday morning and it would be exactly where you want it to be, all problems solved, what would that one area be?
Discipline in hunting. Salespeople tend to be not terribly disciplined. And when you give them systems, they tend to adapt them, make them their own. And just to be able to really find a way to, and we have some great hunters, by the way. It's just to be able to create a level of discipline in our sales team, because oftentimes squirrel, and you got to bring them back. But that's part of the job of leading a team.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Hey, before we get to the last question of the day, if there's somebody watching this that either wants to get in touch with you because of your vision of life or wants to become your next best customer, Joseph, what's the best way of them getting in touch with you?
Well, the simple way is just give me a call at 440 We also have a website. It's www, people don't say that anymore, upper-room-solutions.com. And you can also find us Upper Room Solutions on LinkedIn.
Super. Thank you so much. Hey, Joseph, thank you for being with us today and sharing your journey. And to you, the audience, thank you for watching. We were absolutely inspired. I know I was. Folks, make it a great day and bye for now.